Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the deep dive. I have to be honest with you right out of the gate. I am sweating a little bit today.
Oh,
Yeah. Usually we're here to make you, faster, smarter, more efficient. We give you the shortcuts to productivity or history or tech. But today we are walking down the stairs, past the living room, past the basement storage, and straight into the dark, damp crawl space of your brain.
okay.
We are talking about facing the monster.
It does sound a bit ominous when you frame it like a horror movie.
It feels a bit like one sometimes, doesn't it?
It can. But I promise, the goal isn't to scare anyone. It's to turn the lights on in that basement so it stops being a dungeon and starts being just another room in the house.
I hope so. Because when we say monster, we aren't talking about something under the bed. We are talking about emotion regulation.
Yeah.
And looking at the research we've pulled for this depth dive, stacks of clinical studies, therapy frameworks, the works. There is a twist here that genuinely surprised me. Because I always thought the monster was the anxiety itself, or the crushing sadness, or that flash of red-hot anger that makes you want to punch a wall. But the sources are telling us that is not the monster.
No, that is the fundamental misconception that keeps people stuck for years, sometimes for their entire lives.
Really?
Absolutely. We treat the emotion, the fear, the grief, the shame as the enemy. We think, if I can just get rid of this feeling, I'll be fine. But the research is incredibly clear on this point. The emotion is just a messenger.
A messenger.
It's data. It's biology doing its job, trying to tell you something. The real monster, the thing that actually ruins your life and shrinks your world, it's the avoidance.
The avoidance.
It's the elaborate, exhausting architecture you build to avoid feeling the feeling. It's the fact that you haven't applied for a promotion in 5 years, not because you aren't qualified, but because you're avoiding the feeling of potential rejection.
Well,
it's the fact that you stay in a dead-end relationship because you are avoiding the feeling of loneliness. The feeling itself is temporary. The avoidance can last a lifetime.
that is a massive shift in perspective. So you're saying the problem isn't that I get nervous before speech. The problem is that I called in sick to avoid giving it.
Precisely. The nervousness is just biology. It's just adrenaline. It's uncomfortable, but it's not harmful. The calling in sick, that is the monster. That is the behavior that reinforces the fear and makes your world smaller.
And here's the hook that really caught my eye in these materials, and I want to get your take on this.
Okay.
What if the things you do to feel better, the things you think are helping you cope, are actually feeding the monster? What if your relentless chase for success, or your need for constant reassurance, or even your obsession with positive vibes only, is actually making your anxiety stronger?
That's the terrifying part, isn't it?
It is.
Because you think you're fighting the fire with water, but you're actually pouring gasoline on it.
We are definitely going to unpack all of that, including something called the Eustress Trap, which I think will hit our high-achieving listeners pretty hard. But before we get to the how, we need to define the what, because emotion regulation is a buzzword. It's everywhere on social media, and I think most people get it wrong.
They do. Most people hear regulation and they hear control. They think, okay, to be regulated means I am a Zen master, I am calm 100% of the time, nothing bothers me, I am a rock.
Which sounds lovely, frankly. I would love to be a rock. No taxes, no emails.
It would be terrible. It would be so dangerous. If you are a rock, you don't jump out of the way of a speeding car.
Good point.
You don't feel love for your partner. You don't feel outrage at injustice. The goal of emotion regulation is not elimination. It is not suppression. It is influence.
Influence. That's a key distinction, isn't it?
It's everything. It's about influencing which emotions you have, when you have them, and how you experience them so that they don't hijack the vehicle.
I like that.
Think of it this way. You are the driver of a bus. The emotions are the passengers. Some of them are quiet, some are helpful, and some are just screaming, we're going to die.
Yeah.
Or turn left now.
I've had that passenger a lot.
We all have. And regulation means you can hear them, you can acknowledge them. Okay, I hear you, you're scared.
Yeah.
But they should never, ever be grabbing the steering wheel. You remain the driver.
I love that analogy because I think for a lot of us, we feel like the emotion, especially anger or panic, is driving the bus and we're tied up in the trunk.
Yes, that's a state of dysregulation.
So let's get technical for a second. We feel these things, but what are they physically made of in our bodies?
Okay, so if we strip it down to the biology, emotions are messengers.
Yeah.
They're ancient survival mechanisms, and they consist of 3 distinct parts.
Okay.
First, there's a body sensation. Your heart races,
Yeah.
your stomach drops, your hands get cold. It's purely physical.
Physiology.
Exactly. Second, there's an action urge run, fight, hide, cry, an impulse to do something. And third, there's an interpretation, your brain telling you this is dangerous or this is sad.
And the critical part is the speed, right? I read that they happen faster than conscious thought.
Oh, way faster. They are designed to bypass your slow, logical prefrontal cortex. If a tiger jumps out of the bushes, you don't want to stand there contemplating the tiger's stripes or calculating its velocity.
No, you want to be running yesterday.
You want your legs to move before you've even realized you're afraid. It's a feature, not a bug.
Which is great for tigers, less great for an email from your boss with the subject line urgent.
Exactly. The survival mechanism is outdated for the modern world. The action urge to punch a tiger is helpful. The action urge to throw your laptop through a window because a spreadsheet crashed is not helpful.
Maladaptive.
If it's maladaptive, it's the wrong tool for the job.
So how do we know when the passenger has taken the wheel? Because sometimes it's subtle. I feel like I'm making a rational decision, but looking back, I was just scared.
That's a great question. The sources suggest a kind of dysregulation test. It's a few key questions to check your own status.
Okay, a self-check.
Exactly. Number one, are you unable to problem solve? Like you literally cannot figure out the next logical step. Your brain just feels fuzzy.
Yes, I know that feeling.
Number two, are you being impulsive? Doing things you know you'll regret, but you feel like you have to do them right now.
Yeah.
Sending the angry text, eating the whole pint of ice cream.
Yep.
And number three, are you having mood swings where you physically cannot think clearly, where your reality feels distorted and extreme?
If the answer is yes to any of those, the CEO, the thinking brain, has left the building.
The CEO is on a permanent vacation, and the toddler is running the company, and that toddler is probably setting fires.
Okay, so if I'm staring at a text message and I'm so angry that I'm shaking and I can't type a coherent sentence, I am dysregulated.
You are dysregulated, and in that moment, trying to solve the problem is useless. You have to change your state first.
And that brings us to our first major mental model, which I think is a game changer. We need a map to know where we are. We call it the window of tolerance.
Yes.
I've seen this chart in our notes, and I think it's the most useful visualization for this stuff. It's basically a 0 to 10 scale of arousal, right?
Correct. Imagine a thermometer of your nervous system's activation level.
Okay.
At the very top, from about an 8 to a 10, you have the panic zone. This is hyperarousal, rage, terror, full-blown panic attacks.
This is where the prefrontal cortex, the thinking brain, basically just unplugs itself.
It goes completely offline. And this is crucial for listeners to understand. In the panic zone, you cannot learn. You cannot have a therapeutic breakthrough. You cannot talk yourself down with logic.
So affirmations are useless here.
They're worse than useless. You are in pure survival mode. If you're here, you don't need a philosophy book. You need a bucket of ice water.
Yeah.
You need intense exercise.
Yeah.
You need to shock the system back down into a lower gear.
Okay, so that's the top fire and brimstone. What about the bottom? Because I think people assume if they aren't screaming, they're regulated.
And that is a very dangerous assumption. At the bottom of the scale, from a 0 to a 2, you have the shutdown zone. This is hypoarousal.
Hypo, so low arousal.
Very low. Numbness, apathy, dissociation. You know that feeling where you've been scrolling on your phone for 2 hours, you don't even know what you're looking at, and you just feel hollow.
The doom scroll paralysis, I know it well. It feels like my brain has been wrapped in cotton wool.
That is the shutdown zone. It is also a danger zone because, again, no learning happens there. You are disconnected from reality. You aren't facing the monster. You're playing dead, hoping the monster goes away.
It's just a different kind of survival mode.
Yeah.
Instead of fight or flight, it's freeze.
Precisely. The system is offline, just in a quieter way.
So if 8 to 10 is fire and 0 to 2 is ice, where do we want to be?
We want to be in the middle, the window of tolerance, roughly a 3 to a 7 on that scale. And we call this the sweet spot.
But hold on. A 7. A 7 sounds pretty high. A 7 implies I'm stressed, I'm uncomfortable, my heart might be beating fast.
That is the point. And this might be the most critical insight for our listeners today.
Okay.
The sweet spot is not about being perfectly calm. It is not about being a 3 all the time. It is about being activated but still functional.
Activated but functional.
You need to be uncomfortable to change. If you are at a 0, you don't care enough to change. If you are at a 10, you are too overwhelmed to change. But at a 6, you are feeling the fear, but your thinking brain is still online. That is the only zone where you can face the monster.
There's a quote here that I highlighted about 3 times. You can't face the monster if you are the monster.
Meaning, if you are at a 10 out of 10 rage, you are the rage. There is no you left to observe it or work with it. You have to bring that activation down to a 7 or a 6 before you can do any of the work we're about to discuss.
This reminds me of that movie Inception. You know how they have the totems? Leonardo DiCaprio has that little spinning top to tell if he's in reality or a dream.
Yes, a reality check, a grounding object.
We need a totem for dysregulation because when I'm at a 9 out of 10, my brain is feeding me a distorted reality. I truly believe everyone hates me. That feels like an absolute undeniable fact in that moment.
It feels like a fact, but it's a feeling that has hijacked your perception of reality. And that's why you need the totem, something external or internal that flags you. So I'll turn it back to you. What is your totem? How do you know you've checked out of reality?
For me, it's sarcasm. When I start getting really biting, cynical, making jokes that aren't actually funny but are just mean.
Okay.
That's my spinning top. That's my brain saying, he has left the building. We are in defense mode now.
That is a great self-observation. And everyone listening needs to find their own totem. Maybe it's a clenched jaw. Maybe it's that specific tone of voice you use when you're defensive. Maybe it's the urge to just go silent and ghost everyone.
And the rule is, if you see the totem, stop.
Stop talking. Don't send the text. Don't try to have the deep relationship talk. You aren't capable of it yet. Your only job is to get back into the window.
Regulate first, solve second.
Always.
Okay, so let's say we've checked the window. We realize we are stuck. We are spiraling up toward panic or spiraling down toward numbness. We need to pivot. The sources introduce this framework called 3-layer opposite action.
Yes.
And the catchphrase here is change the layer you are stuck in. What does that mean?
Right. So humans experience life on 3 basic layers.
Yes.
Emotional, which is feeling, cognitive, which is thinking, and physical, which is the body. Usually when we are dysregulated, we are fixated on one layer. We're obsessing over a thought, or we're drowning in a feeling. The fastest way out is to switch tracks.
To jump to a different layer.
Exactly. You intervene on the layer that isn't the problem layer.
Let's start with layer 1. Emotional opposite action. This sounds like fake it till you make it, but with a scientific backing.
It's a bit deeper than that. Remember we talked about the action urge? Every emotion has one.
Right. Fear makes you want to run.
And anger makes you want to attack. Sadness makes you want to withdraw. The rule of opposite action is, if the emotion doesn't fit the facts of the situation, or if the urge isn't effective for your long-term goals, you do the opposite of what your body is screaming at you to do.
That sounds incredibly difficult.
It is one of the hardest skills to learn.
I have this wild story from our research notes that illustrates this perfectly. It's about a photographer. Let's call her Sarah. This reads like a thriller.
I recall this one. It's a classic example of evaluating safety versus danger in real time.
So Sarah gets a phone call from a potential client, a man. He wants to book a shoot for his wife. Standard stuff. But then he starts making weird requests. He wants the photos to be boudoir style, fine. Then he asks if Sarah would be comfortable shooting in her own lingerie.
Immediate red flag. Alarms going off everywhere.
Massive red flag. Now, my instinct, and I think the instinct of 99% of people listening would be hang up, block the number, panic, maybe call the police. That is the urge of fear. Avoidance. One away.
And that would be a completely valid response if she were in immediate physical danger. If she were in a room with him, that would be the only correct response.
But she wasn't. She was on the phone, in her own home. She was physically safe. The threat felt real, but the danger was not immediate.
That's the distinction. Threat versus danger.
Exactly. So Sarah did something incredible. She used opposite action. Instead of hanging up, she stayed on the line. She engaged.
She leaned in.
She leaned in. She started asking questions. Why is that important to you? How do you envision the lighting for that setup? She turned this scary monster, this creepy caller, into just a guy on the phone with a weird, specific kink.
And what was the result of that for her?
She realized he wasn't a predator coming to get her. He was just a strange guy. She maintained her ground. She calmly declined the job at the end, and she hung up feeling empowered, not terrified.
Think about the alternative.
Oh, yeah. If she had hung up immediately, she would have spent the rest of the day looking over her shoulder, convinced the stalker was after her. Her brain would have logged that as a near-death experience.
That is a masterful application. She felt the urge to flee, but she checked the facts. I am safe on the phone. So she approached. And because of that, her brain learned, I can handle this conversation. If she had hung up, her brain would have learned phone calls from strange men are life-threatening.
It's so counterintuitive. We think running away keeps us safe. But sometimes running away just makes the world feel more dangerous.
Avoidance prevents new learning. That's the key. If you run, you never learn that the monster was actually just a shadow. You just become more afraid of shadows.
Okay, that makes sense for fear. What about sadness? The urge is to withdraw, lie in bed, isolate.
So the opposite action would be to engage. Call a friend, even if you don't want to. Go for a walk, even if it feels pointless. Put on upbeat music. Do the opposite of what the sadness is telling you to do.
Got it. Okay, moving to layer 2, the cognitive emotional switch. This is for the overthinkers and the overfeelers.
Yes. Think of it as a toggle switch in your brain. If you are completely overwhelmed, all feeling, no thinking, crying, panicking, you need to switch to the cognitive layer.
So engage the logic brain.
Engage the logic brain. You need facts. You need a spreadsheet. You need to describe the room you're in, object by object, anything to pull you out of the emotional soup and into the world of concrete reality.
That makes sense. But what about the other way around? Because I am definitely an overthinker. I analyze everything to death. I thought that was a good thing.
It can be a superpower. But often, overthinking is just a very sophisticated defense mechanism against feeling. We analyze to avoid the pain. We call this rationalizing avoidance.
Oh, I am so guilty of this. I saw this example in the notes about the father and the surgery, and it hit way too close to home.
Walk us through that. It's a very common pattern.
So imagine a man who needs a necessary surgery. He's terrified, but he won't admit it. He goes to the doctor, and the doctor says, "We need to do this, but technically if you wanted to wait a month, it wouldn't be catastrophic."
The doctor just gave him an escape hatch?
A tiny one, but he grabs it, and he builds this logical fortress around it. Well, work is really busy right now, and the doctor did say it's not urgent, and statistically, outcomes are slightly better if you wait, and I read this one study that.
He sounds so smart.
Yeah.
He sounds so reasonable. He's using his intellect as a shield.
But he is terrified. He's using logic to mask his fear. He's rationalizing his avoidance. It looks like thinking, but it's just a fancy way of running away.
So what's the fix for him? What's the fix for the overthinker who is stuck in that cognitive loop?
You tell me. How do I stop the spinning logic wheel?
The fix is something we call willingness to feel. You have to deliberately drop the story.
Just drop it.
For a moment. Drop the analysis. Drop the reasons. And just switch to the emotional layer. Ask yourself, where is this feeling in my body?
Okay.
Is it a knot in your stomach? Is it a tightness in your throat? A heaviness in your chest?
And then what? Fix it. Analyze why it's there.
No. Just feel it. Label it. Say, this is fear. And sit with it for 30 seconds. That's it. You don't solve it. You just allow it. And what does that do?
It takes the power out of it, because once you acknowledge the raw emotion, the need to build that elaborate logical fortress often collapses. You realize, oh, I'm just scared. And from that place of honesty, you can actually make the decision to have the surgery.
That is really hard to do. It feels like surrendering.
It is surrendering the fight so you can win the war. It's about getting out of your head and into your body.
All right, layer 3, the physical switch. This one seems the most straightforward. Change the body to change the mind.
The body overrides the mind fastest. If you are panicked, you cannot think your way calm, but you can breathe your way calm. If you are depressed and sluggish, you can't think your way energetic, but you can do jumping jacks and create energy.
And this is where the please skills come in.
Yes, it's a great acronym. Treat physical illness, get balanced eating, avoid mood-altering substances, get enough sleep, and get regular exercise. These are the foundations of emotional stability. If these are out of whack, none of the other skills will work very well. But here's where it gets tricky, and the sources warn us about a trap here. We talked about avoidance earlier. Can healthy habits become a form of avoidance?
Absolutely. This is what we were hinting at earlier. We can call it the Eustress Trap or virtuous avoidance. This is where the whole wellness industry can actually do some damage if you're not careful.
I saw this story about a family member who posts photos of his healthy salads to the family group chat every day. Look at my kale, look at my quinoa.
A performance of health.
Right. But in reality, he's severely obese and secretly binge-eating junk food at night.
The salad photo is a safety behavior. It's not about nutrition. It's about regulation. He's using the image of health to avoid facing the shame and reality of his eating disorder. It makes him feel safe for a moment. See, I'm healthy. But it prevents him from actually addressing the real monster.
And I've seen this with the cold shower trend, too. I went through a phase where I was obsessed with cold showers. I felt invincible afterwards, this huge endorphin rush.
A powerful physical intervention.
For sure. But looking back, I think I was just chasing that dopamine spike to numb out the fact that I was miserable in my job. It was a physical hack to avoid an emotional truth.
And a classic example. You're using a strong physical sensation to mask an emotional reality. Even healthy hacks can become a drug if you use them to escape yourself.
Oh,
If you're running 5 miles a day, not because you love running, but because if you stop running, you start crying. That's not exercise. That's avoidance.
man. Okay. That's a lot to think about. So we prepped the foundation. We know our window of tolerance. We know how to switch layers if we get stuck. Now we have to actually do the thing. We have to enter the basement. Let's talk about the Exposure Toolkit.
This is the core of the work. If you take nothing else away from this deep dive, take this. Exposure is the only way out. You can't think your way out of fear. You can't reason your way out. You have to experience your way out.
And step 1 is naming the monster.
Yes. You must be specific. You cannot fight general anxiety. That's like trying to fight the weather. It's too big, too vague.
You have to make it concrete.
You have to fight the fear of rejection at a cocktail party, or the fear of opening an envelope from the IRS, or the fear of being alone on a Saturday night. You have to give it a name and a shape.
We have this metaphor of eating the frog.
I love that.
You have to eat the ugly, gross thing to get past it. But you don't eat a whole whale. You eat a frog. You pick something manageable.
Right. Break it down. Pick a monster you can handle, not one that will swallow you whole.
I loved the example of the mother-in-law monster from the notes. This woman claims she has cut off her toxic mother. She's like, I'm done. I have boundaries. I'm free.
She's declared victory.
Right. But then she spends every dinner date talking about her mother. She's obsessed with her mother's drama, what she posted on Facebook, who she's talking to.
The monster is still there. It's living rent-free in her head. She physically removed the mother, but she didn't remove the need for the mother's reaction.
So the real monster isn't the mother.
The real monster is her own addiction to that dynamic. She is still seeking that engagement, just in a negative way. She hasn't named the real monster yet, which is my inability to feel okay without her validation or outrage, so she can't fight it.
So naming it is crucial. Once we have a name, we have to understand why we shouldn't just keep avoiding it. I mean, avoidance feels great in the short term. It feels safe. Why stop?
Because avoidance is miracle grow for monsters. That is the rule.
Yeah.
Every time you avoid, you make the monster stronger.
I love the visual from the movie The Fifth Element. Do you remember that? There's that evil ball of fire floating in space.
The great evil. Yes, a sentient planet of pure evil.
And every time the military shoots a missile at it, it just gets bigger. It literally feeds on the attack.
That is exactly how anxiety works. Every time you avoid a scary email, your brain learns 2 things. First, that email was deadly. Second, I avoided it and I survived. Therefore, my avoidance saved my life.
Wow.
You have just reinforced the fear loop. You are feeding the fire with your avoidance. You're proving your fear right.
So the only way to shrink the fire is to walk into it.
Correct. But, and this is a huge part, you must follow the 3 rules of exposure. You don't just run into a burning building without a plan. That's just reckless.
Okay, what's rule number 1?
Rule 1, start in the window, 3 to 7.
We're back to the window.
We're always back to the window.
Yeah.
Don't try to face your biggest trauma on day 1.
No.
If you have a severe social anxiety, do not start by giving a TED Talk. That's a 10 out of 10. You will panic, you will fail, and you will be re-traumatized, making the fear even worse.
You need a hierarchy, a ladder.
Exactly. You build an exposure hierarchy. If a TED Talk is a 10, maybe asking a stranger for the time is a 3. Maybe making small talk with a barista is a 4. You start at the bottom rung.
I actually did this. I used to be terrified of initiating conversation. I was so awkward. So my frog was starting small talk with strangers. I started with taxi drivers.
That's a perfect controlled environment.
Right. I figured I'm paying him, he has to be nice to me, and I'll never see him again. It was a perfect 4 out of 10 exposure.
And what did you learn?
I learned that 90% of the time it was fine, and 10% of the time it was awkward, and that the awkwardness didn't kill me.
And that is how you build confidence. You realized you wouldn't die from awkwardness. You stayed in the window. You did the reps. You gathered evidence against your fear.
Okay, rule 2. Remove safety behaviors. This one is sneaky.
It's very sneaky. Safety behaviors are avoidance in disguise.
Yeah.
It's doing the scary thing, but bringing a shield or a crutch.
Like going to a party, which is brave, but spending the whole night scrolling on your phone in the corner.
Exactly. or rehearsing your script in your head 10 times before you make a phone call,
Hmm.
or bringing a friend everywhere as a social buffer, or having 3 drinks for liquid courage before you go.
Why is that bad? At least I went to the party. That's better than staying home, isn't it?
It's a little better, but it sabotages the learning. Because if you survive the party while clutching your phone, your brain learns. The phone saved me. Doesn't learn. I am capable. You attribute your survival to the safety behavior, not to yourself.
So you have to drop the shield.
You have to drop the shield to prove to your brain that you are enough. You have to be naked in the storm, metaphorically speaking, for the learning to happen.
That is brutal. But I get it. If I have the training wheels on, I never learn to ride the bike.
Precisely. You rob yourself of the victory and the confidence that comes with it.
Okay, rule 3. Stay long enough for expectancy violation. Now, this sounds like a Harry Potter spell, but it's actually neuroscience.
It is. This is a huge update in the field. The old model of therapy was stay in the situation until the fear goes away. We call that habituation. Just white-knuckle it until you're calm.
That sounds miserable.
It is. And the new research suggests that for many people, the fear might not go away completely.
And that's okay.
Wait, so I'm standing at the party sweating, heart pounding, and the fear might not leave. That's not very encouraging.
Stay with me. The goal isn't for the fear to leave. The goal is to violate your prediction.
Explain that. What prediction? Before you go to the party, your brain has a catastrophic prediction. Everyone will hate me. I will be humiliated. No one will talk to me, and I'll stand in the corner like an idiot.
Yep, sounds familiar.
You must stay in the situation long enough to get concrete evidence that contradicts that prediction.
So I have to stay until someone smiles at me, or until I have a conversation, even an awkward one, and don't die.
Yes.
Yeah.
You stay until you realize, okay, I predicted everyone would hate me, but that guy just asked me about the dip, and that woman complimented my shirt. My prediction was wrong. That moment, that click of realizing your catastrophe didn't happen, is expectancy violation. That is when the brain rewires.
So it's not about feeling calm, it's about proving your anxiety is a bad fortune teller.
Exactly. And while you're doing it, while you're feeling scared at the party, you use a technique called effect labeling. You say to yourself over and over, I am scared and I'm okay.
I am scared and I'm okay. I like that and. It's not but.
The and is everything. It breaks the binary logic. It stops you from thinking fear equals death. It becomes fear equals uncomfortable, but manageable. It teaches the brain that fear and safety can coexist in the body at the same time.
Wow. Okay, this brings us to the final and I think most surprising topic, the Eustress Trap, or as the notes call it, beautiful monsters.
This is where we catch the high achievers, the perfectionists, the people who think they don't have an anxiety problem because they are so successful and busy.
We talked about avoidance being running away from things, but you can also run towards something to avoid something else.
Chasing pleasure to avoid pain is still avoidance. It's just a more socially acceptable form of it.
So chasing success
might be a way to avoid the feeling of worthlessness or shame. If I'm always winning, I never have to feel like a loser.
Chasing positive vibes and constant happiness
might be a way to avoid grief or emptiness. If I'm always busy and laughing, I never have to feel the void inside.
Chasing validation and being a people pleaser
is almost certainly a strategy to avoid the fear of rejection or abandonment. If everyone likes me, no one can leave me.
This is the Eustress Trap. Eustress means good stress, right? Like the excitement of a challenge.
Eustress is healthy. Ambition is healthy.
Yeah.
But when you become addicted to the high of the positive emotion because you are terrified of the low, that is no longer health. That is a compulsion.
How does that work in the brain?
You are narrowing your window of tolerance, but from the top down. You become so accustomed to the high of achievement or validation that you cannot handle any negative feeling. A single criticism feels like a catastrophe. A slow afternoon feels like a descent into depression. You have to be happy, or you feel like you are dying. You have to be successful, or you are nothing.
That sounds exhausting.
It is incredibly exhausting. It's running on a treadmill that never, ever stops.
So how do we know the difference? This is the big question for me. How do I know if I'm just ambitious, which is good, or if I'm avoidance chasing, which is bad?
There is a litmus test question I use with my clients. It's very simple, but very powerful. Ask yourself, if the negative feeling I'm avoiding suddenly vanished, would I still want this positive thing right now?
Ooh, say that again. That's heavy.
If the negative feeling I'm avoiding vanished, would I still do this? For example, you are working 14 hours a day. You say it's ambition, but ask yourself, if the deep-seated fear of being worthless vanished, If I knew in my bones that I was worthy just sitting on the couch, would I still be working this 14th hour?
And if the answer is no, I'd be sleeping, then you are running from shame. You aren't chasing success.
Exactly. Or with relationships. If the terror of being alone vanished, would I still be desperately chasing this person's approval? If the answer is no, you're just using them as a drug to numb your loneliness.
That is a truth bomb. I feel like a lot of people just had to pause and think about that. So what is the solution? Do we stop being successful? Do we stop seeking happiness?
No, of course not. The solution is to face the negative emotion you are running from. You have to do an exposure to the thing you're avoiding.
So for the workaholic.
The exposure is to stop the chase for a moment. Take a Saturday off and do nothing productive. And then sit with the boredom. Sit with the anxiety. Sit with the feeling of, I haven't achieved anything today.
And do what with that feeling?
And see that it doesn't kill you. Use the toolkit. Name it, this is anxiety about being lazy. Feel it in your body. Learn that you can exist in the quiet. Once you are no longer running from the negative, you are free to run towards the positive because you actually want it, not because you need it to survive.
Wow. It really all comes back to that same core idea, doesn't it? Stop running. Turn around. Look the monster in the eye.
And realize the monster is usually just a scared part of yourself asking for your attention. It's not actually a monster at all.
So we've covered a lot. We've got the window of tolerance. We've got the 3-layer pivot. We've got the exposure toolkit with its 3 rules. And we've exposed the beautiful, shiny monster of the Eustress Trap. Let's try to integrate this into a practical challenge for the listener, because we don't want them to just listen and nod.
Right. Knowledge without application is just entertainment. It doesn't change your life.
So, step 1, name one monster, just one.
Be specific. Pick one fear, talking to my boss about a raise, or pick one beautiful monster, like your compulsive need to check your email every 5 minutes.
Okay. Step 2, check your arousal level. Where are you on the 0 to 10 scale when you think about it?
Are you in the window? Are you a 4 to 6? If you're a 10, just thinking about it, the monster's too big.
Yeah.
Pick a smaller one. If you're a 1, you're probably avoiding even feeling it. Try to connect to why it matters. Get into the learning zone.
Step 3, take one small exposure step.
Do the thing you fear. Draft the email to your boss. Don't send it, just draft it. Or, and this is harder for some, stop doing the thing you use to escape. Put the phone in another room for an hour. Sit in the chair and just be.
And the big one, step 4, remove the safety net.
No excuses. No, at least I tried. No buffers. No asking your friend to read the email first. Just you and the experience.
And finally, stay with it long enough to learn the truth. Stay until the prediction is violated.
Ask yourself, did the bad thing happen? Did I get fired for drafting an email? Did the world end because I was bored for an hour? If the answer is no, you have won. You have new data.
It sounds so simple when you lay it out like that. But I know it's the hardest work we do as humans.
It is. But remember this, you cannot think your way to confidence. You can only experience your way there. You have to build the evidence file in your brain, one uncomfortable moment at a time, that proves you are capable.
That is the takeaway of the day. You can't think your way to confidence. You have to experience your way there. I'm going to put that on a sticky note.
Do it. It's the whole game.
This whole deep dive, it isn't really about being fearless, is it?
Not at all. It's about being brave. It's about not letting the fear choose your life for you. It's about taking the steering wheel back. The fear can be in the passenger seat. It can even have the O cord sometimes, but it doesn't get to drive.
I love that. Well, listener, you have your mission. Find a monster. Eat a frog. And maybe, just maybe, put the phone down at the next party.
And see what happens. You might be surprised.
Next time on The Deep Dive, we are taking this outside of our own heads. We've talked about regulating yourself, but what happens when you have to deal with other people's monsters?
Ooh, yes.
We're diving into interpersonal effectiveness, how to keep your boundaries without losing your friends, how to ask for what you want and say no to what you don't.
It's going to be a good one. It's the natural next step from internal work to relational work.
Thank you so much for listening. Be brave out there. We'll see you in the next Deep Dive.
Goodbye, everyone. Take care.